Welcome to the Tulsa World Scene podcast. This is Jim Watts with Jimmie Tramel, and we are discussing all the things that we have coming up in future issues of the Tulsa World, available at fine newsstands everywhere and at tulsaworld.com. It's coming up to be a busy week. We've got pro golfers coming in to town next week, and it's also coincides with Mayfest, which means that the world will probably end with tornadoes and everything. So whenever we have outdoor events in May, something bad weather-wise goes on, but perhaps that won't happen this year. But what have you got coming up? I believe there is a legendary group coming to River Spirit Casino with a fairly strong Tulsa connection.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned how busy things are getting. Like not this week, but next week, May 12th, you've got Kane Brown at BOK Center. You've got the Loudness 40th anniversary tour of the Japanese heavy metal band at the Venue Shrine, May 12th. And the Oak Ridge Boys coming back to River Spirit Casino, who do have a strong Tulsa tie, and that they were still are managed by Jim Halsey of Tulsa. And Tulsa has been like I don't know about a second home, but it's very much part of their history.
Well, wasn't Halsey the one that because they were I remember when the Oak Ridge Boys were strictly a gospel group.
Mm-hmm.
And was it Halsey that convinced them to go country, or had they decided that on their own? Or
a combination? They were really in no man's land. They had long hair. They didn't dress in matching uniforms like the other gospel groups. They were almost a rock and roll version of a gospel band. And there was some backlash, and they had some bad experiences, which, in hindsight, that seems really strange because there's not that much difference. They say country music is Saturday night and Sunday morning, and the only thing that separates them is midnight. And yet there was a backlash when they went to country, but they had some bad experiences. And it was Jim Halsey who said, to heck with this. You guys need to quit trying to please everyone and just play country music.
Well, because I remember that I think it was the Statler brothers also started out primarily as a gospel group, but they started doing their own stuff as well. And they always kept a foot in the gospel world. But the Oak Ridge Boys, I think they just kind of left the straight and narrow, musically speaking, and had a great deal of success. I mean, I remember, I think one of the few times my father bought a 45 single was the Oak Ridge Boys, the Y'all Come Back Saloon.
Their first hit,
their first country hit. So, and then there was Elvira, which everybody knows. So,
okay. Yes, we've got an interview with Joe Bonsall from the Oak Ridge Boys on Friday talking about those connections.
Now, it's still the same four that have been around since the 70s. Is that correct?
Well, we're going to feel old here now.
Yeah.
The last current member to join was Joe in 1973, which means this lineup has been together for 50 years.
Oh, my goodness.
A little bit of a stretch where William Lee Golden was not in the group, but he did come back.
Okay. All right. Well, speaking of a lot of things going on next weekend, we have both Tulsa Ballet and Tulsa Opera with productions. The thing about the Tulsa Ballet production is they're going to be reviving a piece called While You Were Gone by a woman named Jennifer Weber. It was debuted in 2021. I don't know how good of a week you've had this past week, but it hasn't been as good as Jennifer Weber's. On Tuesday, it was announced that she was nominated for her choreography for 2 Tony Awards for two different shows.
Yeah.
One is called K-pop, which is since closed, And the other one is called And Juliet, which is one of the hottest tickets on Broadway now. And she's up for both of those. So as she said, she's got a 2 out of 5 chance of winning. So they're also going to be doing a world premiere work by oh dear, her name is Katerina, and the last name is a lot of K's and Z's, and I can't remember now. But I know her work is very good, and they're also going to be doing an Alexander Ekman work called Cacti that is really fun and energetic. They're going to do that at the Lorton Performance Center, which is on the TU campus. So that's coming up. And then the opera is doing Stephen Sondheim's Into the Woods, which is about a kind of a fractured fairy tales kind of a take on the Brothers Grimm. That is kind of interesting because they had spent years putting together a production for an opera called Emmeline, and that ultimately fell through. And so kind of at the last minute, they decided they're going to do this. And the interesting thing is, with one exception, all of the principals from the opera Emmeline agreed to take on roles in Into the Woods, even though it's a different a style of singing, approach to singing. So they said this will probably be the best sung version of Into the Woods you could ever hope to see. And that's happening both this week, and that's going to be at the Tulsa PAC. So
hey, I'm somewhat familiar with who has won Academy Awards from our state, and I'm somewhat familiar with who has won Emmys, although that's a much larger list. I'm not familiar with which Oklahomans have won Tonys. Is it a long list?
Well, actually, it is. Two of the biggest ones is Kristen Chenoweth, who won in 1999 for You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown. They created the role of Sally Brown, who was not in the original musical, for her for this revival. Another one is Tracy Letts, who won for Best Play. He wrote August Osage County. He was nominated for Best Actor for Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, and I can't remember if he won or not. I think he did, but I'd have to double check that, and I don't have access right now. But also up for a Tony this year is a company called Tanninger Entertainment, a Tulsa-based firm that has been involved in producing shows on Broadway. They've already won 2 Tony Awards, one for Best Revival for Pippin back in 2015. They also won for Best Revival for the radically redone Oklahoma that unfortunately wasn't able to come to Tulsa. And they're up for Best Revival of a Play for The Sign in Sidney Brewstein's Window, which was written by Lorraine Hansberry, who wrote A Raisin in the Sun. And that so there's, and I know there are more. If I had a little more time, I could probably dredge some up, but those are the ones that I can think of right now. So there are two Tony Awards that have one very strong and one kind of tangential Tulsa connection. So what else have you got coming up for this Sunday?
Well, and it's funny how one thing leads to another, almost always in our business. I read the Leon Russell great biography by Bill Janovitz earlier this year. And oh, by the way, it mentioned this person named Chris O'Dell, who I did not know about until I read the Leon Russell book. Bill Russell, completely different guy than Leon Russell. Won a bunch of championships for the Celtics back in the day.
Kind of tall, I remember, but anyway.
Kind of tall. But it mentioned Chris O'Dell, and I saw this something like, wow, I need to get a hold of Chris O'Dell because Chris O'Dell has a great story herself and has wrote a book a few years ago. I'll just give you a hint. George Harrison, Ringo Starr, Leon Russell all wrote songs about Chris O'Dell. So does it not make you want to know who is this Chris O'Dell?
Exactly.
So we'll fill in the blanks on Sunday. And Chris O'Dell, by the way, is from Kyoto, Oklahoma, by way of Owasso.
Okay. All right. Well, that's speaking of well, not speaking of anything, completely changing the subject. Our current weekend cover story for this week is about tacos. The staff put together a list of about 25 places that serve interesting tacos. Just curious, do you have a go-to taco truck or taco joint or?
You know, I don't think I really do as far as that's where I go to have a taco. I normally go more, I love tacos. Why I don't order them at Mexican restaurants, I could not tell you because they're tasty. They're good. But I don't have a go-to taco place.
Okay.
What did you discover?
I would just say if you're looking for like authentic street tacos, I would recommend Katrina Fresh Mex. There's, I think, 3 locations now around town. Really, really good. If you like things that are a little more exotic, there's a new place that opened. We did a review of a couple of weeks ago called Rosa Cantina.
Mm-hmm.
That they do some really good, really interesting fillings, and these are well-filled tacos. I mean, you are not, they're almost, you almost need to eat them with a knife and fork, but if you pick them up and get a bite of everything, they're really, really good. So I would at least check those out. And
let's just put you on the spot then. You can only have a corn shell hard tortilla or a flour soft tortilla. Which one are you going with?
Oh boy. It would kind of depend on what's inside of it, but like you, I grew up with a taco was the crunchy corn shell, and I remember the first time I was given a taco in a flour tortilla, and I thought, what is this? This is not a taco. But I don't have a preference. I would take what was given to me and be grateful for it. So
yeah.
Okay. Well, that'll probably wrap us up for this this edition of the Tulsa World Scene podcast. Thank you for putting up with us for so long, and we will see you and talk with you again later.
Behave.